Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. This is Gianni Tapoci, your host. It's Friday, so that means it's time to review the geocosmic activity of the week as well as the market activity of the week. So it's been a pretty constructive one for stocks overall. We rallied to new multi-month highs across the board, but we had a series of very intense geocosmic signatures, starting with Sun trine Neptune, Mars opposite Saturn, Sun opposite Pluto, and obviously Venus going retrograde this weekend on the 22nd. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. This is a very important time for the equity market. The Dow Jones finally broke out from that inverted head and shoulders formation that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. So this is a very bullish price development and one that we need to keep a very close eye on. But, I must say this Venus retrograde period does make us pause and just consider the possibility of a reversal here. The good news is that we did achieve our first strong momentum reading since last fall. So this is a good sign with respect to the equity rally. But next week, it's a very intense one of economic data. We have some key inflation reports. We have key housing data. We have the initial Q2 GDP reading. And we have the Fed chair conference and the Fed rate decision. So, while we're in this intense reversal period with all these geocosmic signatures, we need to be on alert for some market volatility. Now, next week, the geocosmic situation is actually pretty relaxed. The only signature worth noting is Venus ingressing into its ruling sign of Virgo on the 28th of July. But you can see here the NASDAQ had a pretty nasty down day on Thursday, recovering some of those gains on Friday, but that gap down is something that needs to be paid attention to in the short term. Let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury yield. It's been a pretty volatile week so far. We had a pretty big up day on Thursday, down a little bit here on Friday, but off of a pretty significant low in the middle of the week. And, this low did occur one day before all of those geocosmic signatures that I listed off at the beginning of this video began. And if this is a reversal associated with Sun opposite Pluto, especially, and even Venus retrograde, because we know currency fluctuations can impact bond markets, this could be a higher low with respect to the trend in interest rates. And, if Fed Chair Powell comes out next week and is more hawkish than some might expect, we know that under Venus retrograde, it's not uncommon to see shifts in monetary policy objectives. And it's not just the Fed speaking next week. We have the Bank of Japan as well. And we've outlined our thesis on what's going on with the Bank of Japan and the Japanese yen for our subscribers before. So definitely keep an eye on the central banks, not just next week, but really for the duration of Venus retrograde, because we could see some double speak. We could see some fake outs in that regard. And again, it is one of the most powerful signatures with respect to reversals in markets. Let's take a look at the euro, down from a high that began at the beginning of the week, trading near the lows of the week here. We did get that nice overbought reading here, but again, this high did occur within the orb of Venus going retrograde and this reversal period that we are in. So need to be alert for this being a high significance. There are some cycles maturing in the euro. It's still in a relatively new primary cycle, but we'll update our readers on that in the coming weeks in the weekly reports. So let's take a look at gold here and look at GDX, the ETF. Coming down off a high, this was the high we were anticipating. We're also looking for a low here. So if we form a higher low, would reinforce the bull trend. And I'm still intrigued at the prospects of, a bullish precious metal environment. Earlier in the year, we liked the idea of gold doing well when Jupiter was in Aries, because the sun is exalted in Aries and Jupiter tends to bring demand to the sectors ruled by the sign that is transiting. But Puyan Zulfargania, MMTA graduate and MMA analyst, pointed out that the moon is exalted in Taurus, so that theme could play out for silver as well. And so we've been pretty constructive on metals as of late, and we'll continue to watch the sector accordingly. Let's take a look at crude oil. USO set to go out near the highs of the week. This is a very bullish close. And the fact that we were able to rally into and through Sun trine Neptune, I think, is a really good sign. And, this ties into that whole macroeconomic thesis we've been building here. that the whole inflation story may not be over. And I think Fed Chair Powell, despite inflation coming down next week, may be a little more hawkish than some market participants may want. And we could see that, reaction really start to take hold in markets. But really, it comes down to whether the low in USO here in March and in spot price of crude oil in May was an intermediate term cycle low. We do look for intermediate term lows in sectors ruled by the sign that Saturn is transiting. And obviously, Saturn is in the sign of Pisces right now. So we're looking for lows in crude oil, not to mention healthcare too. We published the ETF report this past week, the monthly ETF report, and we modified our cycles outlook on that. And, it was a really timely modification because we just exploded higher this into the weekend here and are now trading at new multi-month highs. So this is looking pretty good for healthcare. And the reason I bring this up is because Pisces also rules healthcare. And there's been some major fundamental shifts taking place in that sector, coming out of COVID and staffing shortages and medicinal shortages. And that all ties together, especially when we look at crude oil, because crude oil is used in a lot of medicine in that technology and whatnot. So let's take a look at Bitcoin here, and we can just wrap it up for the week. Bitcoin still range bound here. We've been consolidating within this wedge formation for quite some time. It seems that, we're just trying to run out the clock in a particular cycle here. But as a rule, consolidations near the highs of a move are bullish price action. Now, some might argue that, we've been consolidating into a bull flag formation, but we're kind of flagging a little bit too long for my taste here. But we've been talking about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in April of 2024. That's something that I think is going to be very important for cryptocurrency markets over the next several months in anticipation of that geocosmic signature. So that takes care of all the markets that I want to review with you today. Thank you so much for watching. Just a couple brief announcements. We do have the monthly grains report set to be published next week, as well as the monthly MMA cycles report plus addendum report. Those reports are written by MMA analyst Wyatt Fellows. He does the grains, and Puyan Zulfagarnia. He does the addendum. Wyatt was featured in the mid-year webinar that we did last Sunday. So the recordings for that are still available at www.mmacycles.com. That's where you can find all of our work, our reports, our courses, and all of our educational content. So that's all for now. We'll see you same time, same place next week, and happy Venus retrograde. Bye-bye.